Today on Riffs, Beards, and Gear, we go over how to build an in-ear monitoring system. I just recently wrapped up building this in-ear monitoring system, or IEM, and while posting a lot on the social medias, the Instagram posts and the Facebook pictures and all that kind of stuff, a lot of you have been requesting for a video going over and kind of detailing how that process went and why I built this the way I did, so on and so forth. So I thought we would go over how to build an in-ear monitoring system. So first, let's start with the basics. What is an IEM? An in-ear monitor system, or IEM, allows you to freely move about the stage while hearing all of your other bandmates in what is usually some molded or universal earbud style headphone adapters, and those are connected wirelessly to your receiver that is being wirelessly transmitted the audio from a home source, in this case, the home rack. This has many advantages like sound isolation, and you can pick your own mix and choose who you want to hear and who you don't want to hear. But more importantly, and in my case, it's going to allow Rest Repose, the singer-tenor, to really hear himself while not relying on a different monitor mix or a crappy sound guy from night to night while on tour or playing just a local show. An IEM will allow us to be in control of how we hear ourselves perform. And if you can hear yourself better, then you play better, right? Now, a word of warning before we go on any further. Building one of these systems is the furthest thing from inexpensive you can possibly get. So those of you who have privately written me or emailed me asking how to build a good and robust in-ear system on the cheap, you can't. I mean, you can, but it's not gonna be that great. And we're gonna get into that and why exactly in just a second. So we kind of already briefly touched on the why an in-ear monitor system is an effective and good thing to have, but I will give you a real world example. I was recently playing a show at a club, and we had a standard monitor mix across the front of the stage. I had 2 wedges, and the sound guy got upset that my foot momentarily touched the monitor. Apparently it was a rule that you're not supposed to do that. I was not told that we weren't supposed to touch the monitors or touch the wedges at all. And he simply cut my monitors because he thought it would be a good, funny, retaliatory thing to do, so I couldn't hear myself, thus affecting the show. If I had had in-ear monitors, then he wouldn't have been able to do that with the system that I just built, that I am leaning against right now. So the first step in building an in-ear monitoring system is determining your individual needs, or your band's needs if it's a band that you're putting together the system for. Is it just to hear yourself? Is it just to hear others? Is it a combination of both? Is it load-in affected? Do you want to shorten your load-in time or eliminate sound checks and just roll up, flip the system on, and go? So once you've decided to build an in-ear monitoring system, you need to determine why you want to build one. What are your needs? What are your band's needs? Let's talk about the 2 different kinds of systems that you can build for in-ear monitoring. The first system is probably the most basic and easiest to put together and the most inexpensive. And this is what I call an open system. This is when you have a transmitter and receiver combination, and the receiver being the pack that you put on your body that the headphones are hooked up to, and you get a feed from the front of house mix engineer of what instruments you want, and then you have to take the time to kind of set the levels during your band's sound checks. If you have time for every single member of the band to sit there and have everyone play and do this and point up for more volume and pan it and all sorts of stuff and communicate with the front of house, and you have a competent front of house guy, that's okay, because in this scenario, All you need is a couple of wireless units and you're pretty much good to go. The disadvantages to the open style system is you're relying on someone else to set your levels. You are also risking having the random idiot sound guy having the send all the way up, and he will pop your earbuds, which my buddy Nick in Unearthed, this has happened to him twice on tour in the last couple of years. That's not very often, but when you're dealing with in-ears that are, you know, $1,000 or $2,000 a pop, that can get real spendy real fast. Also, and the most important thing to consider is that is extremely time consuming. You would need a solid 45-minute sound check for a 5-piece band to sit there and get all the levels dialed in for each individual musician of playing, okay, go ahead, drums, play, okay. You know, it's time consuming, and you don't want to be the band that is time consuming. Now, the second type of IEM system is the kind that I built right here, and this is what I refer to as a closed system, a closed loop system. Now, you have to have your own mixer and you have to have your own sound audio nerd guy, that would be me. But this is your own enclosed system, and you are giving yourself your own feeds from each individual instrument, and you're controlling the levels yourself, and you are also able to set these and basically set it and forget it. This has the added benefit of shortening sound check time or eliminating the need for sound checks at all. You are literally rolling up with the in-ear system, turning the power on, making sure your headphones work, and then you're done, because all your levels have already been set back at practice and stored in the mixer. Now, if none of this is really making any sense, I promise it will make sense in just a second as we go through and start building some of these systems. So once my band decided on the kind of system we wanted, which is the closed loop system, we went ahead and started piecing everything together. And that began with me making a list of actual gear and components needed for the system. And that also involves a lot of talking to my friends who have built this sort of thing before, my touring pro friends, what kind of wireless systems they like, kind of mixer they like, all sorts of stuff. Doing this part is diving on headfirst into Gearland, and that was okay with me. So in my particular case, I got out my iPad Pro and I actually drew a diagram. And I photoshopped all of the actual components that I wanted, my wish list, and then I actually drew a physical line to that component to understand the signal flow. Now, this may seem excessive, but this will ensure that you don't get caught with your pants down later when you're constructing it and are missing something. So for the members of my band, we wanted 5 individual mixes. Everyone wants a different mix. Surprise, surprise, right? So that means you are buying 5 in-ear monitoring systems. 5, and when I say that, I mean 5 transmitter receiver packs, transmitter and body packs. That is one wireless system. Now, Rest Repose went with Galaxy Audio AS1400 units, and we had to get 5 of them. Now, we were able to leverage the band's reach and this YouTube channel to get artist pricing, but we still had to purchase them for a decent amount of money because we still had to buy 5 of them. Next on the list was the Behringer X32 digital rack mount mixer. This is an entire huge console mixer in a rack mount package, and it only takes up 3 rack spaces. There was no special pricing on this. We went straight to Sweetwater and we paid the $1,000 or whatever it is, in addition to ordering the Furman power conditioner at the same time, because you have to protect your investments. And this was right around $350. So all said and told, it was right around $1,400 for the X32 and the Furman power conditioner. Now for the actual rack, I knew we wanted shock mount and I didn't want to spend a ton of money doing it. So I went with OSP Cases 12 space shock mount rack that I found online for, I think it was $350. I'll link to all this stuff down below, but it was $350 and that was a solid $125 off the next best shock mounted 12 space rack that I could find. So that's what I went with. Next is the Art S8 splitter. This is an inexpensive but high quality audio splitter. This is to split the audio coming in. So for example, our guitars are using 2 Notes Torpedo Lives. Now this is coming in to the in-ear system and then wiring off. And I have an XLR tap out to the front of house to directly take a tap of the 2 Notes Torpedo Live for myself and for Tony. And the other side of the split goes to the Behringer X32 to go into the wireless units to go into my ears. So there has to be a split somewhere, and it's up to you to decide if you want to split, where you want the split, and when to split. There's a lot of splitting going on. I know, just the diagram is down below in the description. I apologize. Now, as far as wiring up this entire in-ear monitoring system, this would have been, by my estimate, probably close to $800 or $1,000, just depending. I am super blessed, and the band is super blessed to have HOSA cables endorsing us, and we are fully supported by HOSA. They wired up the entire case for no cost to us because we're artists of theirs and they take care of us and all of our needs. Huge shout out to HOSA because I gave them a monster list, mostly of XLR cables, but nonetheless, it was a large list and a huge pile of stuff to sort through, and we were able to get that comped because we're endorsed and have, you know, cool friends in cool places. So now that you have all your components ordered and at your house and you have a pile of boxes, it's time to start putting it together. Now, the diagram that you made before when you were laying everything out is your starting point. This is where you go and reference to lay out your rack and rely on this for any potential problems and therefore solutions. So really, I built this rack twice. I built it virtually and I practiced it and I visualized it in my mind, and then I built it for real. And even then, I still did not foresee, although I kind of suspected it would be a problem, I didn't foresee the problem of the Furman power conditioner being above the X32 because the large wall warts that go to all the wireless units are too long and they're too tall and they get in the way of the XLR cables going into the inputs of the X32. So I had to move the Furman down underneath the X32. This was not something I saw in my diagram, although I did think it might have been a problem. Now I could have moved the inputs to the second bank on the back of the X32, but I liked the signal flow that I had. So input 1 on the front of the aforementioned ART splitter is also the actual physical input 1 of the Behringer X32. And I didn't want to complicate things by changing input numbers when it was time to go and give everybody their mix. I didn't want to create more work for myself down the road, so I just went ahead and switched the Furman power conditioner and the X32 within the rack itself. In the back, I kept things as tidy as possible. I'm into cable management, and I know it's still not like art or anything like that, but it was critical to keep the looms and the wiring as tight as possible to make room for the approximately 1-inch deep caps that fit on the rack itself when, you know, the lids, when you put them on. So I didn't want them to be pushing on the XLRs too much, and I'm happy to report that everything actually did work out. Now, total cost for this rack, the band out of our pocket ended up paying right around $2,000, which is an insane amount of savings for building this type of rig. Now, if we were to build this completely out of pocket, and if I included the 2 Notes Torpedo Lives and all of the equipment and all of the cables, everything totaled up, when I rang everything up, everything totaled to $5,500. So like I said, this kind of system is not cheap. And if you were just starting out and don't have money to burn, don't build one of these systems. But if you are a touring pro band and you really want to take your playing to the next level, then definitely look into building some sort of in-ear rig, because now everybody can be on the click track as opposed to just our drummer Jared. And this will tighten up our band significantly just by itself. I think I've just about covered it all. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them down below in the description. I've also linked to all of the gear I've used in this in-ear system so you can go and check it out for yourself, see if it works for you. Everything was just kind of a balance between cost and quality, and I wish I could get the $2,000 wireless units, but buying 5 of them is just insane money. And you know what, I built the best thing we could for the least amount of money possible, and hopefully this is able to help some of you guys out if you're looking into building one of these rigs. Fluff out.